And finally, we got sold homes. This is the money. This is where you're celebrating, putting the clothes in the boxes, packing things up. Poof! Hello everybody, I hope you're all having an amazing day. My name is Aram, I'm a real estate agent here in the Chicagoland area. If it's the first time you're watching one of my videos, if you enjoy it, please take the time to like, comment, and subscribe. That way you can see more content later down the line. Today, we're going to be talking about how to do a comparative market analysis, which you may have heard it referred to as a CMA. In short, to simplify things, I'm going to show you exactly how we figure out the value of a home. How do we figure out what's the best price to list that sucker to make sure that it gets sold for top dollar? Because you don't want to undervalue it, but you also don't want to overprice it. First, I'm going to systematize it for you. That way you have something you could just plug into as a new agent and just follow it. And then I'm going to take you behind the scenes, share my screen with you, and show you exactly how I ran a comparative market analysis on a listing that I have going live probably in a few days. This way, you'll get not only the system, but how we actually apply it to a real life example and what metrics to look at and things like that. This video is really mostly for two audiences. Number one is real estate agents, either new real estate agents or aspiring real estate agents who haven't really been taught how to do a comparative market analysis. The other audience is the actual consumer, and I want to share this with you because I want to showcase the process that goes into figuring out the price of a home. You know, oftentimes we put in all this time and effort to figure out the right price to list a home. We go in and we present it to the client. Let's say it's a seller, and they'll just be like this. Well, Zillow says that my house is worth $20,000 more, so why don't we list for $30,000 more and negotiate down? Let's get into it. When you're doing a comparative market analysis, which for the rest of this video I will refer to as a CMA, you're looking at three factors. You want to look at active listings. This is very important. You want to look at expired listings. And the last one you probably already guessed are sold homes, and please excuse my handwriting. Obviously, this is where the money is and this is where we want to end up, but we want to make sure we get a clear view of the bigger picture and what's going on with the market. Because not only, let's say this is today, right? Just this line. Not only do you want to go back a few months, you also want to make sure you price ahead of the market. So this allows you to see what's going on in the last 6 months. And these two factors give you an idea of how to price ahead of the market. That way, if the market is on its way down, you're not chasing it with price reductions. Or if the market is on its way up, you're not undervaluing it and selling it for less than you could have, right? So it's important to actually take a look at these two factors as well as looking at what's actually sold. So let's start with active listings. This is very important. This is basically your competition. When you go on the market, all the buyers who are going to be looking at your home, they're either seeing these homes or they're going to see these homes as well because they're comparable, they meet the same criteria, and that's why they're in your list of comparables, right? So the active homes are your competition. You want to make sure you're aware of them. But on top of that, you want to make sure you kind of analyze their situation as well. How long are they on the market? How did they list? What were their photos? What process did they follow? Because while here, they've already done everything right, here you can kind of see in real time what the market is doing. Because you'll have situations, let's say it's a condo unit, right? Where you have a 2-bedroom, 1-bath sell in February for like $150, and then an active listing lists for $152 in March, and they can't get sold. Well, that's a clear indication that something's happening in the marketplace or they're doing something wrong. So you have to look at those factors and make sure that you're seeing things clearly for what they are. So look at the active listings as number one, competition. And make sure that you don't make the same mistakes because they're already on the market and they're getting real-time data, which is the best way to figure out if a house is priced right or wrong, is to list it. Because before you list it, it's all speculation. So if someone's already gone through the trouble of listing their house, they've been on the market for a few weeks or even 60 days, look at it, study it, analyze it, and see how you can kind of avoid the mistakes they made and get your house sold. Expired listings. Don't be here. You got to avoid this. It's what happens when a house that goes off the market unsold. The reason this is the worst place to be is because number one, you didn't sell. Number two, the second you're off the market, you can have about 30 phone calls from real estate agents. One of them will be me if you're in the Chicagoland area, explaining to you what went wrong and how we could do it better. So avoid this at all costs, but as somebody who's trying to do a CMA, it's important to see the expired listings as well. And also take in effect, why did they expire? How come these are active and this is expired? Is it a timing thing or did they do something like extremely wrong? Whereas these are just a little bit overpriced and this is out the wazoo. One last thing about active listing is it's important to take into effect how many of them there are in the neighborhood. If there's only one other active listing, that's good news for you. If there is none, even better. If there's a bunch, then your price has to be a little bit more competitive. You can't really price at the highest amount that we recommend. You got to go in the middle or the lower range. And finally, we got sold homes. This is the money. This is where you're celebrating, putting the clothes in the boxes, packing things up, poof, and getting the heck out of the house. Because you sold, baby. You're sold. You're gone. So this is the best place to be, and you want to make sure you look at these very carefully and see why they've sold, right? Look at the bedrooms, the bathrooms, the square footage, the layout, the location. And not just the location in terms of like being a half a mile away or this, that, and the other, but where is it actually situated in the neighborhood? Is it in a cul-de-sac? Is it on a corner lot? Is it back to the road? Is it back to like a big forest preserve with an extreme amount of privacy? All those things take into effect when you're looking at sold homes. So these are 3 categories that we're going to consider when we do a CMA. Now I'm going to take you behind the scenes, share my screen with you, and actually explain these 3 things in real life and how I comped out a property that I'm selling. And yes, this is also a clever way to let you know that I'm selling a 2-bedroom, 1-bath condo in Schaumburg, right off of Meacham Road. So stay tuned. We are at my desk, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to share my screen. Poof, there it is. I'm going to show you exactly how I came out with the value of the home I'm going to sell in about a few days here. So this is the MLS you're looking at. This is one of the biggest resources that real estate agents have access to. And it's a very important thing because it kind of puts all the homes on the market in one place for us to get all the data directly from the source. Now, let's go in and see. We're going to be comping out a 2-bedroom, 1-bath manor home. If you're not sure what that is, I will. Once you see the photos of the comparables, you'll quickly realize exactly what type of property we're going to be selling. So we're going to go into attached single, and every MLS is going to be a little bit different, but overall they're going to be the same verbiage as well. So an attached single is anything that's a condo, a manor home, a townhouse, anything that's attached to other units, right? Detached single, obviously self-explanatory, single family home. All right, so we're going to go in here, and generally speaking, when you're doing a CMA, you want to start at a half-mile radius. However, you also have to take into effect the subdivision you're selling in. Is the home located on the end of the subdivision, where if you do like a half-mile radius, all of a sudden you're looking at houses that you shouldn't be looking at. The standard really is half a mile, but you also have to kind of use your own discretion with that. So we're going to put the address in, 226. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to use this as a clever way to also advertise the listing I'm going to be selling. So if you end up being interested in this home, let me know. A little bit of a background on the property. It's located in the Lexington Green 2 subdivision, which is a very desired area to live in. One reason is it's very well managed, and the association fees are the lowest among any association or subdivision in all of Schaumburg, and I'm actually going to prove that to you. It's $99 a month. You're just not going to be able to beat that. And the value this adds to is it gives you much more buying power, because you see, $10,000 more on the purchase price of a house is going to increase your monthly payment by $50. However, if your association fee is $200 instead of $99, that's $20,000 of purchasing power on your monthly payment that you're losing. So this allows you to, number one, pay less on a monthly basis and actually get the home you're looking for. So anyhow, I'm gonna stop selling. So it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and we got fresh carpets in there, fresh paint, refinished cabinets, refinished bathroom, new blinds, all the mechanical stuff that needs to get done has been done. So it's a very freshened up unit, and it's gonna go on the market. And it's actually, I'm sharing my screen again, it's actually not located on this dot. It's actually located right here. And I'm gonna show you a satellite view just to, as I mentioned earlier, the location of the actual, like physical location of the property you're trying to comp is important, because you see, this is where my unit is, right? I mean, it's back to a lake. You got all this privacy behind you. No other units in sight, right? And it's angled in a way where you can't even see these guys right here or these guys right here. Whereas if you lived here, your backyard is, you can breathe on somebody basically, right? So you got to keep that in mind. This adds a lot of value to the property. Now we know what we're looking at. We're only going to look at comps in this subdivision because, number one, I've done this already. So I know exactly how many we're going to be looking at. And I think there's enough sales going on in this neighborhood for me to actually get a good idea of what the best price for my listing is going to be. Okay. So now, as you can see, I didn't do a half-mile radius. I looked only in my subdivision, right? If I didn't find any sales here, I would go across the street to Lexington Green 1, which is similar style homes, just a little bit older. and the association fees are a little bit higher. But I would kind of make those adjustments as I go. If I was comping a property right here, I'd probably go a half-mile radius, because single family here is probably going to be all the same school districts along those lines. Now it's time to put in the criteria to make sure that we're only looking at the most comparable units that compared to the one that we are trying to sell. So we're going to go in and we're going to adjust some filters. We don't need any auctions. We don't need temporarily not showing. We need closed, expireds, and pendings. And let's go in 2 bedrooms, maximum 2 bedrooms, because that's exactly what we have. All right. And we generally want to go back about 6 months. However, you go back 6 months and then you adjust from there. For example, if you go back 6 months and there's like 30 sales, then come back to 3 months and see if there's less things to look at. If you go to 6 months, there's nothing, go to 9 months. Maybe expand your radius. If you can't expand your radius, go back a year. Maybe put another bedroom, maybe a half bath. So you make those adjustments as you go. So it's not just black and white. That's kind of the point I want to get across to you. There's a system to it, but over time you'll realize there's some modifications you can make. So boom, we do that. We have 7 listings to look at. So let's take a look at them, okay? All right, so we have this sucker right here. It's 140, it's a short sale, which when you're pulling comps, you can't look at a short sale the same way you look at any traditional sale. Because short sales, they take longer to sell, they're harder to sell, it takes bank approval to get them closed, so there's gonna be less buyers looking at them, and hence they sell for less. So you can't really use that as a direct comp. But it's good to look at to see what's going on, and it's pretty much identical. Our cabinets are the same cabinets, same countertops. We have brand new carpet. It looks like they just have laminate flooring, but overall the layout is the same, right? Our bathroom's a little bit newer, to be honest with you. So this is a manor home. 4 garages, 4 units, 1 lobby. Very simple, okay? So we're not gonna check this, but we're gonna keep this in mind. Moving on, mine's a C1 unit, just AKA. We have this one on Brookstone for 146 it closed for, and it was on the market for 176 days. So let's take a peek. Okay, so you can tell right away the kitchen doesn't look as fresh. Maybe if they painted the cabinets, things would be a little bit different. You got, wallpaper on the wall. What is that supposed to be? But we're gonna go through it relatively quickly. Older bathroom. Okay, it is a first floor unit, and as you can tell in regards to privacy, there are other units around you, right? Actually, it's a little bit better than most, but there are still other units around you. So my concern here is, why was it on the market 176 days? It looks like they listed it for 160, and then they came down to 150. And then I also like to see what happens when they come down to 150. Because oftentimes when you do a price reduction, you'll sell relatively quickly. Look at that. They come down on November 26th. They came down to 150 from their 160 price point. And then on the 9th, so maybe a couple weeks later, they went under contract and closed at the end of December. So, okay, very interesting. See, this is what happens when you price something right. Moving on. We have another C1 unit, very similar to mine. As you can tell, it's not as private. You have a whole sidewalk right behind you. There's not a lot of space. The way the fireplace is laid out is very unfortunate, but nonetheless, we'll keep it moving. Similar cabinets, appliances. Actually, we have a much bigger space for the fridge. That is a pantry back there, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. And their bathroom is a little bit more updated than ours, but ours is not old by any means. And that about does it. This is a C1 unit. This sold for 153, and this sold in 29 days. And this is where it comes down to timing. Sometimes you just find the right buyer at the right time, and sometimes you don't. So you got to keep that in mind. Now, this was the February 8th. So actually a pretty recent sale. Let's look at this. So they went under contract, listed on the 11th of January, and just about less than 30 days later, they went under contract. Interesting. And they sold for 153. Moving on. We have a C2 unit, which is a second floor unit on Ironwood, which is not here. So it's right here. Boom. So they have similar, in regards to the privacy, they're very similar to what we're working with. They sold for 155, over $5,000 over asking in 7 days. See, this is why you can't just look at one comp. You have to look at several comps, because one took 180 days to sell for 146, whereas the other one was able to sell in 7 days. Now, there's always a reason to it. Could it be because of the privacy back here? Or could it be, well, it's definitely not because the carpets are new, that's for sure. Definitely not because of the kitchen. So this is a much older unit, but why did it sell for more? They didn't play any games with the price, ladies and gentlemen. When you price it competitively, it goes quick, and it actually goes for more. Just gonna leave that out there. Moving on, you can see $99 association fee. Now we have another C2 unit sold for 160, which is a good place to be. What did they list for? 161.5, and it took them 160 days to sell. However, if we look into the details, it appears as so they started at 170, which is a little bit high for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. They did go under contract pretty much quickly, relatively quickly, which gave them the idea that the house is worth that. Maybe it was, but things change. And then once a house comes off the market and it starts building market time, it becomes much harder to sell. But you can see right here, it goes price reduction, until somebody came around and bought the sucker for 160 on the dot, right? So let's look inside. It does have carpets, definitely not new. Cabinets are a little bit old. Appliances look fine. Bathroom is fine. Overall decent unit, can't really complain. It's sold for 160. Not much different than the one that sold for 155. Not much different than the one that sold for 146. So we're keeping all this in my mind, okay? We have a B1 unit. These are generally a little bit smaller, but you can see this one's definitely a little bit more updated. The photos look amazing. The appliances look great. The kitchen looks great. And it does have a smaller balcony though, or patio, whatever you want to call it. However, look at that, 220 monthly association, and it's still sold for 165 in 28 days. Now, when did they list? So they went under contract November 10th, and they listed it October 14th. Fascinating. Moving on, we got a C2 unit. It's sold for 169. Basically, it's one of the highest sales in the neighborhood. Again, nothing special here. So why is this one selling for more? This is actually pretty much identical to what we're selling. The only difference I would say is our bathroom is definitely more updated than this. And that about does it. And they're not as private, obviously. They don't have that backyard to the lake. And they sold for 168.9. Okay, so basically, let's look at the whole bigger picture here. Now, this is when we look at those 3 categories I mentioned before: actives, expireds, and closed listings. Now, what is something you don't see on this list right now? You don't see actives and you don't see expireds, which is telling me right away there's a lot of demand in the neighborhood and zero inventory. So if I list mine up, I actually have the ability to kind of push the envelope a little bit and price it a little bit more than what I feel the right price would be if there were other competition out there. But none exists right now in the 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom space. And before I tell you what I feel the best price to list this house is to get the top dollar for it, I want you to tell me in the comments, what do you think is the best price to list my unit for, to make sure it sells quickly, but it also sells for top dollar in a time like this? Leave it in the comments, all right? I'm gonna pause this video, do it in 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna tell you, 165. We're gonna be listing this bad boy for 165. One thing I did forget to mention when I was making the video is that you also wanna look at, in general terms, what is happening in that neighborhood. So take off some of your filters. For example, I was looking at only 2-bedroom, 1-bath units, right? However, what if there's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit that was listed for 160? See, that would cause a lot of problems for me if I'm listed at 165, right? So it's also important to just kind of, in broad terms, look at the subdivision and see what kind of active listings there are in general to see what competition you're dealing with. And just so you guys know, I did do this beforehand when I was running my comps. There are 5 active listings, 3 of them are under contract. One is a 1-bedroom, 1-bath that went under contract at a list price of 160. That's why I felt confident going in at the 165. The highest list price is 225. Not worried about that. The highest under contract is 200K, and then there's a lot between around 180. So that is very important. I just want to make sure I mentioned that. Now back to the video. And with the special marketing I'm going to do for it, I have no doubt it's going to sell probably in about 2 weeks, if not less, because there's zero inventory available. Our price is competitive. We're going to come in at 165, so we're going to get those people who are looking in the 175s, 180s, and then we're also going to get the people with a budget of 155, 160. So with all those people together, we're going to be able to get a lot of traffic, get an offer, bada boom, bada bing. So that's how you comp a property. I hope it was helpful. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care.